Good afternoon. It's a nice day out here. I got this new hat. I am actually pointing to it with this hand. This is my hands out of frame. I found this hat for £2 in a shop that sells stuff at knocked off or reduced price. It's usually most of it's out of date, but you can get some good bargains. Winter's coming to an end. We've maybe got like another month, and then it's debatable when spring starts. People say some people even think it starts now in February. I think when this video goes up, it will be in March, but I'm filming this in the last few days of February. So in this video, I want to talk about word salad, and it's one of my favorite topics because there's certain topics I'm interested in. Obviously, I've just been doing some videos about relationships, and I am generally interested in relationships, but my interest in relationships is I like to sit in a cafe and I like to watch other couples and I like to listen to other people, and it's more gossip. I find talking about relationships more gossip. If it works, if your relationship works, it works. That's all there is to it, really. And if it doesn't, I find a lot of the issues people face in relationships are actually brought on by themselves. So it's one of those topics where I feel the world needs to progress before the topic progresses. But a topic like word salad is an interesting one to me. It's something that's always fascinated me. Where intelligence comes from has always fascinated me. It's something that resonates with me. You see, I was the kid I came from a predominantly working class background, even though I grew up in a middle class area. And what that meant was, I went to a working class school. What that meant was, if you were interested in the world, you weren't even labelled a nerd. You were just labelled as a dreamer, or what was wrong with you, or indifferent, because there was sort of this monotone thing that we go to school, we leave, and we just bum about, or we get a low paying job, and then we have kids, and then we just, the main focus of students was sex and I guess violence in a way, and deceiving authority and the police. And there is intelligence within that community. But with me coming from a middle class area, I never really fit in. I was always one of those kids who was interested in space and whatever, but then to fit in, I sort of, if you want, numbed my intelligence. And then when I started getting older, and I didn't want the job everybody else wanted, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was in this really rough period where I was sort of finding film, and I was interested in the world, I was interested in music, and I was sort of rebelling. But when I look back, it wasn't really rebelling. And then as I got older, it became clear to people around me and clear to myself that I was actually a pretty intelligent guy. And so I'm 27 now, but in my 20s, especially my early 20s, I was always, so from 18 to 20, I was always somebody who was in a library reading books and trying to get as much information as I could. But from 20 to about now, I've really just absorbed so much information. And I've absorbed so much information from different parts of life, whether it be, this isn't a commercial to talk about my intelligence, we're just going to go about it this way so you can see what I'm saying. I've consumed, I'm a big wrestling fan, I'm a big manga fan, I love classic books, I love things about space, I love Russian films, I love Japanese films, I love Spanish horror. I've just been into everything across the board. I even like cars a little bit. I'm a big fan of the Tokyo drift scene. And I've also lived multiple different lives. I've had different personalities that fit different people. I feel I'm somebody who I could easily get into a club what's heavy metal. I could easily get into a club what the music is predominantly rap or club. So with me going this unconventional way into intelligence, I've realized this thing that the people what do go to university, and the people what maybe come from middle class to higher class, they have much more access if you like, to books, and it's not as frowned upon for it's almost perceived as quite cool for somebody to be sat in a cafe with stacks of books and to be interested in the subject. And I would say the next generation, the Gen Zs and some of the millennials, are a very interested generation. They are a very intelligent generation. With the rise of the internet, they've grown up with their fingers in many pies. So I think intelligence has changed. Whereas in the previous generations, you had boomers what were just into like Elvis. So they knew everything about Elvis, all the dates of his concerts, when he was at his worst, when he was at his best, and they will, when you meet them, they'll hit you over the head. Say if you've ever gone on a cruise and a boomer comes up to you, they will know all the information about the ship, when it was painted, etc. And I think that sort of goes into the word side, because there's always this thing that just because you know a lot about something doesn't mean any form of intelligence. Just because you've researched something, or just because if you're using this your avalanche, your attack of words and what you know about something, you're not really interested. You want to hear the sound of your own voice, and that's where the problem comes in, because every single piece of work, a book, a film, it can all be interpreted differently. Every one of us will watch a film and will have a different interpretation. Sometimes that can fit around the ideology, and that's where good critics come in. A good critic will make sure that their review is not hitting their own ideology, and they're reviewing it from a non-biased standpoint. And there are some critics who are really good, will review things from a non-biased perspective. But all work, if you look at a major work, we'll say like Charles Dickens, there are books and there are notes about his life. Now, obviously, a biographical insight into him, you can't really, most of that will be fact. There might be some interpretation, but notes are only notes. When our teachers and when everybody else stands up and gives a lecture, they are lecturing it from notes. Maybe they have their own opinion as well. If they do, kudos to them. But a lot of it, they are notes. They are, I'll give you an example. I could say that Dickens' work is bleak, and the subject matter is bleak, sure, but it's not a nuance, because the nuanced argument would be that Dickens' work is actually realistic. It's a reality of the time. It's a reality of the coming times. So you can say it's like a bleak dystopia, but that doesn't really give it justice to the whole piece, you see. So within the notes, there is kind of a strain on intelligence, because the real intelligence comes at you. So what you have is people what have access to higher education and information. They tend to use intelligence as a piece to navigate through life, and you see it a lot on the internet now. Sometimes you see a content creator who had no intelligence, and then they're wearing fake glasses, or they are coming across like they're interested, or they're they're molding their personality into this sort of new look, because the person what is the intelligent person in the room, the person what is the most intelligent person, what holds the cards, even though you can't really hold the cards in intelligence, that's the person everybody really wants to listen to. Anybody what's got information on the internet, people want to listen to that person. And these people that they create, so that they might have a beard, they might talk fast, they might quote lots of people. Now the thing is, you can quickly read notes of prominent writers and figures, and you can then sprout that off as your own research. But that's not really intelligence. Intelligence is to understand, is to have a broad spectrum of interests. Unless you are like a genius in one field, that's slightly different. But then you'll find geniuses in one field that usually are able to have opinions on lots of different things as well. And they're able to, if you look at every single genius in our time, like the Einsteins, the Edisons, they are all people what have created multiple things. They haven't just come up with one idea. Now, we live in this world where people are claiming to be intelligent or geniuses, but what they're doing are just actually, they're finding an issue. They're finding, for example, the self-esteem of men or the self-esteem of women, or the fact that if you look at the market, let's just say cafes are on the rise, and somebody's telling you to open a cafe, or somebody's telling you to open a bookshop, or somebody's whatever the grind is, whatever they did to get money and to become this trendy figure, if you like, because whenever anybody opens, I don't know, and this isn't sour great, somebody opens a bookshop or a cafe, or they have some online business, or they've sold something and they're worth millions, they will then, they have the car, they have the lifestyle, they have this life, and they'll then teach that to everybody because they want to be in this position of success and power, and they'll teach it to everybody around them. But what I'm trying to say is, what they've actually done isn't anything. It's impressive, of course, because anybody who takes a zero resource and makes it big, it's impressive, and it's something we should look at and be interested in. But we have to understand the difference between what is truly impressive and what is just something what is, oh, that's pretty good. So for example, if you look at I'm sorry to do this because I don't like to influence my opinions on the topic I'm talking about, but I'm going to do this. For example, if we look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it kind of started off as interesting, but now it's become cookie cutter, and it's every single film is kind of the same. So when you look at something like Oppenheimer, it's much more of a technical achievement. It's much more impressive when it comes to the acting and the lighting, etc., etc. And so Oppenheimer is a much more of an impressive piece than Marvel. But you could say that Marvel makes more box office, it makes more money, but it doesn't mean it's the greater thing. If you see what I'm saying, that intelligent people know that there are books out there that nobody's ever read what hold some really important keys to life. You really have to, it's like digging for treasure, you really have to try and search and search and search and search to find intelligence. It's like whatever you're a fan of, when you become a fan of that thing, you start to when new fans start becoming, getting into the show, you notice mistakes they make. Say if you've watched, let's just pick an example. Say if you watch Breaking Bad 3 times, the first time you watch it, you might sympathize with Walt. The second time you watch it, you might hate him, and the third time you might have this new opinion where it's like he's kind of a bit of both, or it's actually about. It's not about whether somebody's hateable or likable. It's actually just about a portrayal of somebody's life, and that's how you develop that opinion. And that opinion then sort of becomes, if you like, the smartest opinion in the room. So a lot of the people what you are seeing about now who are, in quotations, are intelligent, are people who have had lots of access to information at an early age, and it doesn't mean they understand the topic anymore. If I could quote I could say, I don't know, I could bring the name John Ruskin. If you don't know who John Ruskin is, that automatically now makes me sound like I know something you guys don't. But I've only read notes of John Ruskin. That's the truth. I read a small book on him, so I've got an idea of him, but I don't have a bigger scope of him. But then, what people are doing who are in these positions, what are spewing this word salad out, and they are looking to claim onto positions of absolute intelligence. And that doesn't really exist, because intelligence should always be changing. They are looking to solidify part of the market, and this is something we all do by accident. Even if you're playing the dumb guy who's asking questions, or even if you're playing the smart guy who has no questions, you're still kind of playing this part. And that means there's nobody really natural for us to grasp onto. So I do think there is some need for these content creators, but you have to, because they do make us aware of things. Self-help is a big thing at the moment, and whether the change in tide is something like an ice bath is embarrassing. Something like an ice bath is just a trend. It doesn't actually work. That's the tide what's changing. But at the same time, it was raised, and it was something that was brought into the world by somebody, and people that take ice baths are looked down upon now, and then the people that maybe don't care about their opinion look down on the other people. So it creates this sort of like entertainment for us all. Like you can go to work, you can be like, oh, I bet he's one of those people that has an ice bath, or you can be like, you can go to work and be like, these people need an ice bath. So we when there's a gap, for example, if you or feeling insecure, and then somebody comes along speaking about insecurity, that person then fills that gap. But just to get to the meat of this video again, just to solidify what I'm talking about, is this word salad what people use. I mean, I speak fast, I admit that, but I speak fast because I don't go for notes, so I'm trying to cover ground, and I'm delving into like a part of information what I've thought about, and I'm just sort of picking bits out and hoping they all fit to the conveyor belt. And usually they do. That's the interesting thing about communication, because when you're listening to this, you're not actually really taking it in word from word. You're listening to the framework, and then some words register with what your groundwork is, and then it's like a jigsaw that they fit together, and then you can agree or disagree. But what's happening is there is a problem with people what are in positions where the world thinks they're intelligent, but they're not, because they had access to higher education. Just because you went to a university doesn't make you more intelligent than anybody else. There are people there are criminals what are more intelligent than the people in jail now what are reading books and reforming their life and rechanging. So the world will have you believe that you have your level of intelligence, and I don't believe it exists. I believe that it is environmental. If you have people around you now what have no interest in learning or have no interest in progressing in life, and all they want to do is just cheat on their spouse, have another kid with somebody, if they get a STD, it's like a STD, STI, is it STI? Yeah. They think it's funny, or they think it's some form of entertainment. If you hang around those people, you will then fall victim to not wanting to progress in your life, if that makes any sense. And progressive information isn't actually about trying to know the most, or it's just about enriching your life. The more things you're into, the more richness that your life has, and the more beauty you can see in the world. Why do you want to just be into one thing? You have to challenge yourself. You have to try and push yourself into something other. You have to have two conflicting points hit each other. Most of my videos, I made a video. I'll make a video about being a bit of a loser can be a good thing. I'll make a video about how being successful is a good thing. Points of interest can hit each other, and that's the problem when we look out to these people who are doing the word salad. We want to have some definitive view. We want somebody to tell us something. So the people who are at the top, they've been at the top for a very long time. They've from an early age and from whatever they got themselves. They were journalists, and they spend a lot of their time around people who are also quite informed, and they're able to gather a lot of intelligence. They have the resource to gather this, but just because they have this, they are not holding something special over you. Because if you're waiting for them to teach you about it, you're giving them the power for them to then hold on to this intelligence. Okay, I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to say that I usually talk for another 2 minutes, as you know. I think this is an important topic because I think we are all looking for people and searching for something to get us through, and we're searching for somebody to help us out, and people are taking these positions of and what they're saying, if you break it down, it is they'll say a lot of stuff, and it's a bit like, to be honest, this has been going on for a long time. If you read some old books, you will see a lot of the old authors, they're very airy. They use too many words to describe something. They just rattle on and on and on, because there are writers and filmmakers and whatever who kind of have a bit of smugness to them. They want to be above their audience, and they want to. That doesn't mean that there's nothing interesting in them, because with people that do use word salad, you will see that there are parts in it. If you read an old book, what is very airy, there's parts in every page, but I resonate with that he wrote something honest there, and he or she, and I like that. But then the rest of it is just it's not necessary. You sort of cut back the fat. So this is something that's always been a problem, and it's something what you can use to twist your way out. You can like weaponize intelligence, which is always a problem. Okay, have a good week. Ciao.